All right, guys. So I decided that because we're all locked at home, what I'd like to do is post some videos on things you could be doing while you're stuck at home. Things that'll make you healthier, things that'll make you more fit, and things that'll take your mind off of the current situation that everybody seems to be in right now. I know everybody's going through a very, very stressful time, but there are some things that we could do hopefully that can make it a little bit better for you and decrease the chance that you get sick. I do think that there is a massive benefit to working out. Uh, we're going to start off today with some foam rolling. The reason why I decided to go with that instead of a workout is because your lymphatic system is very important part of your immune system and helps to remove waste out of your system. A lot of times that waste could get bound up and it just gets stuck in between the muscle fibers, gets stuck between the skin, and isn't able to be able to properly get removed. And so what we're going to do is we're going to work a little bit on the foam roller, see if we can unbind that. That lymphatic system sits very superficially underneath the skin, and very commonly you just get tissue that gets bound up and it decreases that lymphatic flow. Excuse me. So we're just going to go through a simple foam rolling routine. I imagine most of you already know how to do this, but it would be a good reminder just to do it on a regular basis, and I'm assuming most of you guys have the time. All we're going to do is we're going to grab our foam roller. Hopefully you have one of these at home. If not, you can Amazon Prime them to your house, get to you pretty quickly. If not, you could always use a water bottle, you could use a wine bottle, you could use ABS pipe, anything that's hard and you're able to apply pressure to those muscles is going to help. Okay, so we're going to start off with the calves. You're going to sit down on your butt. We're going to overlap one foot over the other, and we're just going to look for any tender spots there in those calves. Once we find a tender spot, we're just going to hang on that tender spot for 30 seconds. What we want to make sure that we're doing is that we're not just going down a two-dimensional line down that calf. We want to explore the inside, see if there's anything in there, explore that outside, and see if there's anything in there. Once you find something, we could either roll back and forth across it, you could hang over the top of it for a while and just let that pressure build up. Try to breathe into that knot as much as you can. And basically all we're doing is unbinding those tissues from the neighboring tissue, allowing for greater flow, allowing for decreased tension on that joint, and just making your body recover a lot faster and making you feel a lot better. We're going to get both sides, and just once again, every time you find a tender spot, we're going to hold down that tender spot for about 30 seconds. This is something that we want to do on a regular basis, ideally at least 3 times a week, especially if you're finding that you're already bound up a bit. And, excuse me, and frequency over intensity. So before you go trying to dig in as deep as you can, as hard as you can, I would think about how often are you planning on doing this. Far more important that you get this in 3 days a week than to do it 1 day a week and just try to mash the hell out of it. Okay? So we're going to first start off with those calves. Then we're going to move on to the peroneals. And the peroneals are on the side of the shin here. And we're just going to lean over to our side here. You can keep this knee pointing up to the sky for support. That could be a lot of weight on those small little muscles. And a lot of times you'll find a lot of pressure there on the side. When these muscles become excessively tight, they'll flatten that arch to that foot and create a lot of dysfunction within that foot. Your feet are extremely, extremely important. In fact, we're going to do another video later on just on feet and mobility of your feet. 1/4 of all bones in your body are found in your feet because it takes a lot of stabilization in order to stabilize your foot. And if that foot's unstable, it's going to make your knee unstable, which makes your hips unstable, which makes your core unstable, which makes your spine unstable, which makes your shoulders unstable, and it works its way all the way up chain. In fact, there's a lot of research done on reflexology, and all of it shows that it's very beneficial. But as far as the mechanism, they're not completely sure what the mechanism is. I do have a hypothesis on that, which is that if various parts of that foot are knotted up, it could create joint dysfunction, which puts you into a posture that could be compressing organs. And so it is extremely, extremely important that we loosen up those calves. Those calves have a tendency of being tight throughout the day. As we sit down, being that that calf does cross that knee joint, can create compression in your knee, can create compression in your ankle. And like I said, that calf has a tendency of creating other problems upstream that you might not even realize it, but there could be problems with your neck, problems with your jaw, problems with your shoulders, problems with your elbow that actually originate in the calf or the foot, or your ankle complex, right? The next one that we're going to do is we're going to do your hamstring. We always want to do, with these large muscles especially, just do one side at a time. And looking for any tender spots there, we're going to start off right where your butt and your hamstring tie in together. I'm going to angle my foot at a 45-degree angle inward. And I'm just going to roll back and forth looking for any tender spots there. Being that I've been out sick for a while, and I just worked my legs the other day, my hamstrings are actually pretty sore and they're pretty tender. By breaking this up, it'll increase that or decrease that recovery time and allow me to get my workout in tomorrow because I am supposed to work my legs again tomorrow. Once again, I could go back and forth. As a good general rule, if I'm going to do this before a workout, what I want to do is I want to do passes, going back and forth the length of the muscle between 10 to 15 times, excuse me. If I have just, a half hour to kill and I'm looking to really just dig into all those knots, I want to spend 30 seconds on each knot that I find and really give it some attention there. I could do some things like cross myofibril release, where I am going across that muscle fiber. I'm creating a wave of pressure as I go across that muscle fiber. Okay? I could also do a tack and release method. It's a little bit hard to do with the hamstrings, especially when laying down, but all you do is put pressure on that, and then you're basically opening and closing that joint in order for that knot to sit here. I'm sorry, the femoral to sit here, and that knot just rolls back and forth over the top of it. We can do it from a seated position with one of the balls, and you'll really get that experience where you can feel that knot clicking back and forth over the top of that. Okay? Another thing you could do is you could try to squeeze that hamstring and then relax and try to release into it as much as you can. And that will help even a little bit further. Okay? And the next one that we're going to do is going to be your IT band. Your IT band, we're going to start off at actually your TFL, which is one of the muscles that is attached to your IT band. So my hips are going to be facing a 45-degree angle. The foam roller is going to be situated right below my hip bone. You're going to find a meaty flesh there, like a spherical meaty flesh. And we're going to just let pressure build up there, see if there's any tenderness in there. If not, you can move on, but give it some time. This is more of a spherical muscle, and a lot of those fibers are not as superficial as some of the other muscles, especially like your IT band would be. And once we feel like we've got that, we're going to put the other hip, one hip over the other here. My knee is pointing to the sky with this wrapped over the front here just to decrease some of that pressure. For some of you, this can be very, very intense, and we want to take off some of that pressure if we can. So we're just going to slide down. Very commonly, depending on what's called the pronation of a muscle, meaning the direction in which the muscle fibers go, if they're all facing the same direction, a good general rule is that you will always find, or almost always find, a master trigger point right at the halfway point of where that muscle begins and where it ends here, okay, which would be about mid-thigh here. And really spend the vast majority of your time there. You'll find that by getting that knot out, we'll do more to release the tension off of that muscle than to hit all the other remaining knots by themselves individually. Okay? A lot of times while I'm there, I like getting that outside of that quad and that outside of the hamstring too as well. So we're going to turn that ankle or that foot outward at a 45-degree angle now, and we're going to hit the outside of that hamstring all the way up to that tie into your butt and all the way down to your knee. And once again, if we're doing it prior to a workout, we're doing passes, about 15 passes per muscle, and it doesn't have to be real slow or real fast, just a moderate pace, just going back and forth 15 times. What happens is, by applying pressure to that muscle, we'll deactivate that muscle, which we don't want to occur, especially with stabilizer muscles, just prior to a workout. I'm also going to get that top of that quad on that, what's called your vastus lateralis, that outside portion of that quadricep muscle, and I'm just going to run along that top ridge of my quadricep muscle here. Okay? And I'm just looking for any tender spots. Right there, it's a little bit tender. I'm gonna go ahead and hang out there for 30 seconds. And once again, in this position, I could do a tack and floss method where I feel that knot click over the top of that, and then I feel it release. I feel it click over the top, and then I feel it release. I'm gonna do the same thing over the entire length of that muscle from my hip all the way down to my knee. And once again, just looking for anything that's tender. I'm gonna shift over so that way I'm hitting that front portion of that quadricep muscle. Okay. Hit up in those hip flexors, high up in that hip joint, right at that crease of your hip, and then work your way down to your kneecap. And there's a little bit tender right there. I'll use the tack and floss method there as well. I could also use a squeeze and then try to just relax and sink into it. I squeeze that quadricep muscle as tight as I can, and I try to just relax into it as much as I can. Okay? Obviously, I'm only doing one side for time purposes. You could always pause the video and do the opposite side. Obviously, we want to do both sides. The next one we're going to do is going to be for your inner thigh here. So we're going to lay parallel to the foam roller here. My hip is going to be outward at a 90-degree angle. My knee is going to be nice and high. And I'm going to start off right at my groin. And I'm going to look for any tender spots that are in the groin. Once again, same concept. Anything that's tender, I'm going to hang out there for 30 seconds unless I'm about to work out. And then I would just do simple passes back and forth across that adductor muscle. Okay, so it's a little bit tender right there. I'm going to go ahead and hang out there, let it just relax. One of the things that we're doing is there are little sensors in each muscle, right where the tendon connects to the muscle, that sends a signal to your brain saying this muscle's too tight. We need to relax it. What happens is over time, that sensor gets dulled from being in a shortened, tightened position, from things like sitting, from things like being at your computer desk all day long. And what we want to do is we want to amplify that message to that sensor to say, it's time to go ahead and relax that muscle fiber. Let's go ahead and release. That process generally takes about 30 seconds. So if you're just hanging out there for 10 seconds, you might not be getting the full benefit that you would within the 30-second time period. Kind of the same phenomenon that occurs around stretching. Another thing that we're doing, we're just mashing out those muscles. I always like to think of what's called fascia. Fascia is all the connective tissue that holds your body together. It's like a three-dimensional spider web. And those spider webs, once they touch each other, they want to stick. They get very, very sticky. And all we're doing with this foam roller is we're going through and we're unsticking that, trying to open it back up to allow flow of nutrients to flow back into that muscle, to allow that proper joint function to occur. And like I said before, as it pertains to the virus right now, it allows that lymph fluid to flow back into your heart to be removed and improves your immune system and your immune function. The next one that we're going to do is going to be your piriformis. Your piriformis is a muscle in your glutes or in your butt that attaches from your tailbone to the outside of your hip called your great trochanter. And if you were to draw a line from your tailbone here to that knobby structure that you feel on the outside of your hip here, right to here, that's where we want to be aiming for. So we're going to sit down on top of the foam roller. We're going to place one hand behind us here. The same side leg is going to go up on that ankle. We're going to pull that ankle nice and tight to our hip bone here. From there, we're going to slowly roll down until we find any tender spots. For a lot of you who sit down for a living, this will be very, very tender and might even be a little bit discomfortable, or uncomfortable, excuse me. We're just going to look for any tender spots on in there. And once we find that, we're just going to hang out there, relax, try to just breathe into it. And as you exhale, try to sink into that knot. Imagine that there is butter melting inside that muscle. And that knot is a chunk of butter, and you're trying to just let it melt. Let it relax. Breathe in nice and deep. And we just let it relax. I like that method because just simply focusing on your breath can decrease stress. We're all a bit stressed out right now, and there's another phenomenon that occurs in which if you're tight, you're stressed. If you're stressed, you're tight. It's what's called the feedback loop. We could enter into that feedback loop with the tightness of those muscles and really try to loosen them up a bit. It'll decrease the amount of cortisol, that stress hormone that your body's producing, and it'll decrease that stress. I'm not saying that you're not going to have things to stress about. We all have things to stress about right now. Trust me, I understand. I get it. But we can at least do our part to try to mitigate that stress as much as we can. Okay? The next one that we're going to do is going to be your lats. Your lats, what we're going to do is we're going to lay down on our side. We're going to put that foam roller right where your tricep meets your armpit there. And we're just going to be just barely on the south side of that tricep. And that's a muscle called your teres major, which is a muscle that sits right at the bottom of your scapula. It draws it all the way to the middle portion of your scapula, excuse me. And so if you just lean back just a little bit, right at the bottom of your scapula, very commonly you'll find some tender points on in there. You can hit your entire scapula there while you're at it. Once again, if I am about to work out, I do passes, right? If I'm about to sit down and watch some TV, or I'm about to go take the dog for a walk, I will sit down and just hang out on that spot and just kind of let it sink, let that pressure build up. There's benefits to doing both, and we want to make sure that we're doing both. I would highly advise anytime that you touch weight, you do passes over each one, and then when you finish off, if you're finding that there's muscles that are very tight while it's warmed up, get in there and let that pressure build up. Hang out on those knots and let those knots start to release over time, okay? And once again, I can't emphasize this enough, is that if you're going to do this, which I hope you all do, doing this on a regular basis is far more valuable than doing it very intensely once, okay? You're only going to get so much benefit out of that real quick workout, real quick foam rolling and then done for a year. We want to do this on a regular basis. Ideally, if you could do this every day, it's going to be most beneficial. The next one we're going to do is going to be your thoracic spine. And so first we're going to work on getting a little bit between your shoulder blades. If you have a rumble roller is going to have knobs on the roller. A regular foam roller will be smooth. Both are fine. This is a little more advanced and it's going to feel a little more intense, but it also allows you to get into small little areas that perhaps the foam roller won't allow you to get into, one of which is between the shoulder blades and in the spine. This particular foam roller, it has a notch cut out for the spine. I don't know if you can see that from there, but it allows you to rest your spine directly in the middle of that notch. That way we're not grinding over your spine, which can be bad, especially if you have osteoporosis or something like that, where you potentially could break off one of those processes to your spine. So what we're going to do is we're going to open up that scapula by giving yourself a big hug, okay? Right about now, probably most of you guys need a big hug, so go ahead and give yourself a hug. And we're just going to roll over anything that has ribs attached. So any one of your vertebrae that has ribs attached, we're just going to get in there, see what's tender at all. And a lot of times you'll hear a lot of crackling, a lot of those vertebrae popping and making noises. It's a good sound. It means that they're releasing, they're opening up into their natural position. Okay? The next one I'm going to have you do is you're going to go above your head and do the same thing with your hands above your head now, without pulling your shirt up, and just look for any tender spots on in there. And once we find one of those tender spots, once again, we can just hang out. Another really good thing to do while you're here is just let your body sink over the top of that. Very commonly, a lot of postural deviations are caused by that forward posture, that what's called upper cross syndrome, where you're bent over, your shoulders are caved in, and we want to open up that spine as much as we can. Open up that rib cage as much as you can. Allow more air into your lungs. Allow you to breathe more freely. It'll allow less compression in your diaphragm. Your diaphragm actually plays a very, very important role, not only in just breathing, but also massaging your food downward and making sure that we're completely digesting our food. Also, another very important thing is that try to practice breathing through your nose whenever possible. That Deep breath through your nose activates your diaphragm. That breath through our mouth, it really only activates what's called your scalenes, that upper respiratory inhalation muscles, which generally don't get down all the way down to that diaphragm, and that diaphragm is extremely important for digestion. There's also a feedback loop that occurs between cortisol and diaphragmatic breathing, where if you breathe through your diaphragm, it drops cortisol. If you breathe through your chest, it raises cortisol. It makes you more stressed out breathing through your mouth, which causes chest breathing. Okay? So something to focus on. Like I said, I know these are very stressful times, but we need to do everything we can to mitigate that stress as much as we can. Okay? Next one I'm going to have you do, we're going to do your chest, shoulder, and bicep. And going back to that upper cross syndrome, or that forward roll shoulders, that pectoralis minor, which attaches at your right below your nipple on your rib cage and into your upper arm here, will draw that shoulder forward. That pectoralis minor will pull it inward. The anterior deltoid will clump everything forward in this position. We want to unlock all that there to allow those shoulder blades to sit back in a more natural position. So we're going to, once again, that foam roller is going to be running parallel to us. You'll find that there's a big knob right where your shoulder sits. And we're going to sit just on the inside of that knob, and we're going to let some of that pressure build up. Okay? And we're going to make our way across that deltoid. You might have to lean in just a little bit, bring your hips up just a little bit in order to actually hit that spot. And we're going to make our way all the way down to the bicep and down to the elbow. Okay? As silly as it sounds, a lot of problems that are caused in the shoulder, especially when those shoulders are rolled forward, are caused by that bicep tendon. And you get a little bit of bicep tendinitis from that bicep being in a short position all day long. We can put that hand behind our back, hip bridge just a little bit, and dig into the top, that head of that deltoid or shoulder. All your rotator cuff muscles attached to what's called your acromion process, which is a bony structure you feel right here in your shoulder. You do get, very commonly, we get tendinitis build up in there. And it's not that bad of a thing to go through and just kind of massage all that out. Try to get all that inflammation pushed out of there. That's it for today. We went through the fast version. Obviously, I only did one side per muscle. But don't be afraid to get in there and get both sides. Pause the video as you need to. Ideally, this is something that we want you guys doing 3 times a week, if not more. If you have postural distortions, I would find that one spot that feels real tender to you. For a lot of you, it will be hip flexors. For a lot of you, it will be your IT band. For a lot of you, it will be your piriformis. For a lot of you, it will be your lats or your chest or your shoulders, whatever it might be. You could spend every other day doing 30 minutes off of that checklist, whatever happens to be sore for that day. I mean, the rest of the day, do your entire body. If you're going to go work out, do your entire body every time you go to work out. The one thing I'll say to you guys to leave this off with is that we're in very weird times. This is unprecedented in American history, at least in our history, should I say. Stick with it, guys. Be healthy, be fit, find a way to be happy, find a way to reduce your stress. Your immune system is severely weakened when you're overly stressed out. Simple things like focusing on your breathing. Simple things like focusing on gratitude. I know for a lot of you it seems like there's really not much to be thankful for. But there's always plenty to be thankful for. So even if it's just the sunlight, be thankful. And more important than anything is just be nice to everybody. Like, we're at a time where things could go awry, things could go very bad. And a lot of what's going to decipher that is how civil we behave and how good we are to our neighbors. So just be civil, be nice, be kind, and have compassion for your fellow man. Okay? Thank you, guys.